لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله.
My dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, first of all I begin with praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless this gathering, and may Allah ta'ala bless our lives with the spirit to commit ourselves to the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the way demonstrated by His Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I'd like to send my gratitude and show my appreciation and send thanks to the organizers of this event. First of all, for organizing such a wonderful event with such a wonderful theme, and secondly, for inviting me here to share some words with you with the hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives me the ability to implement the words of advice, and inshallah, everybody else sitting here too. The topic that I've been allocated is a conversation with American Muslim youth, how to be Muslim in America. And it's quite ironic that I was chosen for this subject. I'm always given the youth topics because people still think I'm 24. I'm 30 today, as of today. Thank you. Thank you. Only Sheikh Yusuf wants his happy birthday from the brothers. I'm not looking for any gifts, by the way. But the doors are always open. Secondly, I think it's ironic that I was chosen for this topic because I didn't grow up in America. So I wouldn't know what it's like to be American, or to be raised in America. But then I gathered that, being British and coming from England, you always need the British to come and teach you how to live, how to behave. Therefore, it's an appropriate choice. And then I saw that my fellow panel speaker is Imam Yaseen. So you've got two British people coming and telling you how to live. Alhamdulillah. The topic I was given, growing up in America, it's a fantastic topic which concerns all of us sitting here today. There has been much talk in the media in recent times about American values and Islamic values, and whether an American can be a Muslim or a Muslim can be an American. If I asked you today, can a Muslim be an American, what would your response be? Because when we look at the American Constitution and we look at the values that the general American public possesses, and the attitude and mentality they have, one of freedom and tolerance and respect and equality, then these are Islamic values and principles. That's why I'm a firm believer that being a Muslim in the 21st century in the United States of America is very, very possible. There is no clash in being a good American citizen and a good Muslim. That's the first thing I want to share. Secondly, the situation of the youth is a very delicate one, because the challenges that the youth face on a daily basis, challenges of identity, peer pressure, inferiority or superiority complex, are very unique challenges that people coming from a different subcontinent or different continent and migrating to the States cannot fully sympathize with. It's very different coming from somewhere else, being raised somewhere else, and then coming to America. It's very different, not understanding what our children go through on a daily basis when they are out there in that big and bad world. Therefore, I'm going to have this discussion, first of all addressing the youth, having a conversation with the youth, then I'm going to have a conversation with the adults, the teachers, the murabbis, the ones who are making the tarbiyah, those who are nurturing. So I want you to pay some attention, inshallah. I'm going to go straight into the thick of it. Number one, I was already mentioning that being a Muslim and being American are are not incompatible. Both of them are compatible, they go hand in hand. The values that are promoted in this free and just society that we live in are the same values that the Quran and the Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam Sunnah teach, of equality, of respect, of tolerance. This is the first point I wanted to mention. Secondly, I wanted to mention that the youth, your position is delicate in the sense that you are in the spotlight. You are in the spotlight because you are in the school atmosphere, in the college atmosphere, the educational atmosphere, and you face many different challenges. Some of you are struggling to pray in class because you have a teacher who discriminates. Some of you may be, struggling and having the challenges of wearing a hijab at school. Some of you may be struggling because you want to grow a beard and lihya, but people don't understand you. So you are at the spotlight. Your actions are being watched. You are representatives of Islam, whether you like it or not. You are presenting Muslim values. And it's important that you instill within yourself some pride and confidence for what you stand for, so that you can face all of these challenges appropriately. I was speaking about the issue of identity. Identity is influenced by many things. Where you come from, what language you speak, what ethnicity you are, whether you grew up in a city, whether you grew up in a village, or the countryside, or the ghetto. All of these aspects can influence your identity. And sometimes we find ourselves as Muslims born and raised in the West as a crisis with our identity. Am I Desi? Am I Indian? Am I British? Or am I American? What am I? Well, I generally like to call Desis here very confused. In England we call you guys ABCDs, American born confused Desis. Really and truly, the Desi kids, they don't really know what they identify with. They don't know where they come from. Like, am I Pakistani, or am I Bangladeshi, or am I American? I don't really know where I am. I don't really know who I am. I don't really know what language I can speak. They speak a language in front of certain people, but they would be ashamed to speak that language in front of their friends. Or they would be ashamed to identify with certain types of people. So when you tell people that you're Indian, immediately people start asking questions. Well, how come you don't have an accent? Well, how come you don't speak like, the accent that many people have when they come from those countries? And then we're stuck and we have to differentiate and say, well, I'm not fresh, I'm not a fob, and I'm born and raised here, so that's why I speak different. I dress differently, I don't wear those colourful pants that everybody else wears, those stripy shirts. I wear different shirts and I wear different, I dress differently. So we have a real identity crisis at times. Some of the environmental factors that impact our identity crisis is age group as well, and also the fact that there is always an in crowd. There is a crowd that is known as the in crowd, and sometimes we're stuck with our identity. If I try to be a good Muslim, then I won't be recognized amongst the cool people, the in people, the ones that are famous in school, the ones that are known in school. And then we also suffer from something called peer pressure. This is a huge problem in our community, a huge problem in our society, growing up with values that are sometimes conflicting. The fact that our freedoms living in this country give us an open access to so many things, whereas our Islamic values are restricting us somewhat. Our Islamic values are telling us to hold back. Our Islamic values are telling us don't be a slave to your desires. Our Islamic values are telling you to put some rein on your temptations. Our Islamic values are telling us live in this world like a prisoner. And then when we go to the school atmosphere, that first day in university is absolutely shell-shocking. You go to university the first day and you see the atmosphere there of openness and freedom, and it's a huge clash that you see. Something you were raised with, especially if you came from a Muslim school. You went to a Muslim school all your life, and then you were put in the thick of it in college. You went to UT, wherever, Austin or wherever you went, and you found a complete open atmosphere, and you have all the freedoms in the world to do what you want. college time over, class time is over, nobody's there to watch you, nobody's there to look at you, nobody's there to monitor you. This is a huge problem we face. Then peer pressure starts kicking in, because that in crowd who are cool like to go out, maybe have a few drinks, maybe go to a club, maybe go to a bar, maybe do this and do that, and we're pressurized into doing this. And this is a huge problem that our youth are facing. This is a huge challenge that they are facing. And number one, the reason why there is peer pressure and they are pressurized into doing things is because they have a weak personality. This is one of the reasons. If a person has a strong personality and their personality is built, they won't be forced or pressurized into doing something they don't want to do. So you have to develop that personality of yours, define who you are. I'm a Muslim and I stand up for certain values. Yes, I have the freedom to indulge in this and this, but my deen tells me better. My consciousness and awareness of Allah is preventing me and is becoming an obstacle for me to indulge in my desires. So having a weak personality is one of the reasons why we are pressured. Another reason is because we're unable to convey our true feelings. If a friend of ours, sometimes even Muslim friends, are encouraging us to do something wrong, we're unable to stand up for ourselves. We're unable to say to them that, you know, I don't do this, I'm sorry, but you go ahead and do it. But because we have a problem with acceptance, we want to be accepted in every crowd, we give in to the pressures that are put in front of us. And that's a problem. That's a huge problem, because we should never be weak, and we should always be able to communicate and convey our true feelings and how we feel about certain things. You know, one of the other reasons why we are affected by peer pressure is because of fear of rejection. We don't want to be rejected. Because we have this nature of being wanted and being accepted, then we tend to fear rejection. So if I don't give in to this pressure that I'm going to be rejected, then people are going to think I'm the nerd, I'm the dweeb, and nobody's going to want to befriend me. Nobody's going to want to associate with me. That's the reason why lots of people give in to peer pressure. And number four, lack of options. People give in to peer pressure because there are lack of alternative halal options for them to indulge in a halal manner, for them to feel entertained and kept entertained, and for their time to pass. So this is another problem that we have. Identity crisis is one of them, and peer pressure is another one. Now, what are the solutions for these two? The solutions for them are, number one, I'm going to give you an example. There is a flag, and the flag is on a pole. When the wind blows, the flag blows in any direction that the wind is blowing it in, but the pole doesn't move. The pole stands firm. The pole stands firm. So in this example, we have to be the pole and not the flag. The flag, wherever the wind is blowing it, the flag is moving in that direction. But we have to be strong in our personality. This is the number one solution to the identity crisis that we are facing. Number two, we have to question ourselves. We have to look into ourselves and ask, am I pleasing Allah Ta'ala? Am I compromising the values that I was brought up with, the values that were instilled in me? Am I compromising my faith? Am I missing my salah? Am I, giving up the halal food that my parents raised me to eat? Am I compromising fasting? Am I compromising the clothing and modesty, etc., that my parents raised me with? Am I compromising? So these are the issues that we have to look at. Are these aspects being compromised or not? Understanding what peer pressure means is another issue itself. The fact that whenever you are falling into it, you get a sense of feeling uncomfortable. This is the problem with peer pressure, and you can diagnose your peer pressure like this. Now, how do you get out of it? How do you get out of peer pressure? The way you get out of peer pressure is, number one, being strong and firm. Number two, refusing to be the doormat. I am not a pushover. You will not walk all over me. You will not demand certain things from me, and I will not conform to your ideas of what life is. I am not the doormat. Take your agenda elsewhere. Number three, find true and real friends. A true friend will not try to change you. So if you are a good practicing Muslim or Muslimah, and you are trying very hard to stick to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is essential in your young days, then your true friends, even if they don't follow the same path, they will not try to change you. So choose people that are true in their friendship and sincere in their friendship. If you want some respect, then remember, people will respect you for what you stand for. If you don't stand for anything, they will not respect you. And Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said in a hadith about being strong, in Sahih Muslim on the authority of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he says that the strong believer is better and more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the weak one. So we have to be strong. We have to define who we are. We have to set the boundaries. We have to set the guidelines. So ask yourself next time you are pressured into doing something, is this what I want to do in life? Is this what I was raised to do? Or am I being pressured into doing it? The minute you feel uncomfortable, you must know and assess and diagnose that you are being pressured into doing something. And you must pull out of it instantly and do not allow yourself to be that doormat. Now, I'm going to change the conversation slightly from the youth, I'm addressing the youth, but to the other youth. Because youth play an important role in guiding other youth. Youth play a very important role in guiding youth. You have three categories of youth. Number one, you have your very practicing youth. The youth that are going to every halaqah, going to every seminar, going to every workshop. They listen to nasheed, they listen to qira'ah, they're always concerned about their deen. And then you have the middle youth. The middle youth are the ones that, you know, they might like listening to Drake and Lady Gaga every now and then. And then they might go to the Jumu'ah as well. And if their friends drag them to the halaqah, they'll go to the halaqah. And then you have the third category of youth that are completely far from deen. So the ones in the middle play a very important role, the middlemen. Because these youth will be bridging the gap. And they will be the bridge for the good youth to access the youth that are far. And the way you would do this is by being a brother or sister and not a scholar. If you become a scholar with them and draconian with them, your words will not have an impact. But sometimes you have to put your arms around someone, have a smile, be patient and tolerant, and give them words of wisdom. And you have to be up to date as well. You have to know what's going on. If you don't know what's going on in the hood, then your words ain't going to have any impact. They'll think this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know what he's talking about, well, he's not going to affect me. So this is really important. The middlemen are the ones that we need to bring closer to the deen and use them as an access to the other lot, because they have access to both crowds. So you would always find that there are three types of crowds in the youth. The first one, the second one, and then the third one. And we have to concentrate on bridging the gap with the first and two by using the ones in the middle. As I was saying, we have to be a brother and not a scholar. We have to be a sister with them and not a scholar. We have to have a smile on our face sometimes. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam smiled often. He said it was sadaqah. Sometimes you see people, they're so miserable, it seems like the miseries of the world are all on their shoulders. I can understand if you're married. But if you're not married, then you should never be miserable. I'm joking, you shouldn't be miserable even if you're married. You must be able to address how to bring a smile to your face if you're married too. I know a lot of married people struggle with that. They just can't manage to smile. So much stress, right? So much stress. So Imam Yaseen inshallah will address how to bring that smile into our marriages, how to be happy in our marriages. So I was mentioning not to be a scholar, but to be a friend with them. Sometimes we have to hang out with the youth. Even community leaders. You have to know what the youth like, and sometimes talk to them. Be nice with them. Go to them. If they're playing basketball, if they're playing soccer, if they're playing something in the multi-purpose hall, sit with them sometime and talk to them. Ask them what they're into. What do you like doing? What sports do you like? I don't like American football or basketball, but sometimes I ask kids in the masjid, hey, how are the Cowboys doing? Or how are the Mavs doing? Or how are these teams doing? Or that team doing? So that the youth immediately think, oh wow, you like football. Really dumb, but anyway. It's not much of a sport, is it? Compared to soccer. But anyway, so this is the problem. This is something we need to try and adapt. Talking to the youth. Rasulullah had a lot of time for youth. Prophet had a lot of time for youth. He spent a lot of time with the youth. There was Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu that stayed in the company of Rasulullah for 10 years. The minute Rasulullah migrated to Medina, his mother Sulaym came to the company of Rasulullah and said, "My son is in your service, take him." And Anas radiallahu anhu himself speaks about the qualities of this great teacher, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Great teacher. He says, "I stayed in his company for 10 years. Never did he once say to me, 'Why did you do this?' or 'Why didn't you do that?'" Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was never harsh in his tone. He was not rough or coarse in his stature, in his demeanor. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam never shouted, nor did he speak too softly, but he spoke in a moderate tone that had a striking impression on the listener. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was the true murabbi and the one who nurtured and educated people. He says, "Innama bu'ithtu mu'alliman." And now my conversation is going to change and go to the adults and the fathers and the mothers and the educators that are sitting here today. There are certain qualities and traits we need to have as educators and as parents. Whether you like it or not, automatically you are in a position of authority and trust and respect Allah Ta'ala has given you. You are a role model and a teacher for your children. There are certain traits and qualities that a murabbi and the one who nurtures and the one who gives tarbiyah must have. The first and foremost is tolerance and patience. When we are trying to make tarbiyah and raise our children, and we are trying to instill within them the greatness of Allah Ta'ala and love for Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, good morals and values, then there will be some blocks that come in our path and it may be difficult for us to overcome them. We will sometimes face frustration. We will sometimes get angry, but we have to learn to contain ourselves and control ourselves, because our goal is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to feed our egos, but the true murabbi is Allah who nurtures, and the hearts are in His control and His command. We can't change the hearts of people, but we have to continue making ta'aleem and tarbiyah, teaching and educating and nurturing with wisdom and hikmah and with kind words. So patience and tolerance are extremely important. Allah Ta'ala says, فَاصْبِرْ إِنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ. فَاصْبِرْ إِنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ. Be patient indeed, the promise of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is true. You know, hastiness and wanting quick results, this negates tarbiyah. This negates tarbiyah and it brings a negative impact to tarbiyah. We see when Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was called by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to receive the message of Tawrat, Musa alayhi salatu wasalam rushed. He was quick and he left his qawm behind. وَمَا أَعْجَلَكَ عَنْ قَوْمِكَ يَا مُوسَى. What made you hurry, O Musa? Why did you leave your people behind? هُمْ أُولَٰئِ عَلَىٰ أَثَرِي وَعَجِلْتُ إِلَيْكَ رَبِّ لِتَرْضَىٰ. Oh Allah, I rushed and I was hasty in my coming to you because I wanted you to be pleased with me. What was the result? فَإِنَّا قَدْ فَتَنَّا قَوْمَكَ مِنْ بَعْدِكَ وَأَضَلَّهُمُ السَّامِرِينَ. The result of Musa alayhi rushing in hastiness was that Allah Ta'ala caused a great fitna to the people that were left behind, and Samiri had misled them and misguided them. Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi rahimahullah says after this that anytime we see the Muslim Ummah has befell some calamity or some problem, it was because of hastiness. So tolerance and patience are extremely important virtues and qualities to have when we are making tarbiyah of our children. We have to be patient. We can't change them instantly, especially if we never started early. If we started our tarbiyah process very late, it's going to be very difficult to change them later on. So this is the first quality we must have. Number two, sincerity. Be sincere in what you're doing. Don't do it for your ego, but do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sincerity is the root of every action. And the fruits of your action your actions will only bear fruits if you have sincerity. إِنَّمَا ثَوَابُ الْأَعْمَالِ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Therefore, sincerity is extremely important in what we're trying to achieve. Number three, politeness. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, بَشِّرُوا وَلَا تُنَفِّرُوا يَسِّرُوا وَلَا تُعَسِّرُوا. Encourage, do not discourage. This is a different translation that you might hear. بَشِّرُوا وَلَا تُنَفِّرُوا. Encourage, do not discourage. Simplify, do not confuse. This is what Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said. So when we are giving our children tarbiyah, give them simple tasks. Pray your salah on time. And give them practical lessons that they can learn. Don't just be rash in your tarbiyah and demand them to do things that are beyond their reach. But yassiru, simplify and do not confuse them. Encourage them, give them incentive, and do not discourage them. وَلَا تُنَفِّرُوا. If you discourage them, you lose them for good. And number 4, good character, having a good character. The reason why Rasulullah had such an impact on the Sahaba was that his actions spoke louder than his words. Not only did he teach people to do something, he had it in himself. If we are going to make tarbiyah of our children, make sure that we are nurtured spiritually ourselves. Otherwise, there will backlash. There will be no effect. If we are relaxed in our prayer, if we are relaxed in our modesty, if our friend circle is not very good, not very pious, not very religious, not righteous, and then we try to inform our children or expect them to have good company and pray on time and do this and do that, it will not have any impact on them. It will not have any impact. Now, how do we achieve these things? I'm going to go through it very quickly. These are some steps, 9 or 10 things I want to mention, and I'm going to end here. How do we achieve this? How do we achieve the tarbiyah of our children? How do we raise them to be good Muslim citizens of the United States of America? Number 1, win their confidence. The only way you will win their confidence is if you are acting on your own words. If you don't act upon your own words, then they will smell hypocrisy from your mouth as soon as your mouth opens. Number 2, talk about the pious people. Give them examples. Read stories about the Sahaba and the pious prophets of the past. If you tell your children facts, that doesn't have much of an effect, but if you tell them a story of the pious, that has a greater effect of time. Read to them stories of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, like Hikayat al-Sahaba by Maulana Yusuf Andawi rahmatullahi alayhi. Many stories of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu and the hardships they went through to acquire Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure. So many sacrifices, the women, the children, the elderly, the young, the old, boys and men, great sacrifices. Read Hikayat al-Sahaba. Make ta'aleem in the home. Make ta'aleem in the home, even if it's for 5 or 10 minutes every day. Do it after dinner. Eat dinner together and do it after dinner. Make ta'aleem in the home. 5 minutes, read a hadith, talk about it. Something practical that we can implement in our lives, that we could improve our morals and our values. Number 4, teach them to dress modestly from an early age and be a good role model and example of this ourselves. Number 5, be careful about giving them access to cell phones and computers. Be very careful about this. Have the conversation with your spouse about this deeply and look at all the pros and cons and all the negatives and the positives and what can be achieved from this and what is negative about it, and then assess the situation accordingly. Number 6, salah. Salah should be the most important one really, but salah is really important. You will only achieve tarbiyah if you instill the discipline of salah within your children. Number 7, introduce them to good company. Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanvi rahmatullahi alayhi, one of the greatest scholars of the subcontinent, he used to say that when your children reach an age of understanding, introduce them to pious, good scholars. So they can come and sit in the company of righteous people from a young age, and they have the zeal and keenness to stay in their company. Like the children of the Sahaba always wanted to sit with the Prophet ﷺ, always wanted to be with him. Likewise, introduce your children to righteous and good people from a young age. Birds of a feather flock together. If your children have a good spirit, inshallah they will stay with the pious. Number 8, make dua for them, because at the end of the day, it's in Allah's hands. We can do so much tarbiyah, but Allah is the Murabbi. Entrust them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Entrust them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah ta'ala give us all the ability in this very brief time. I tried to address the subject which is far more comprehensive and detailed than I could do. Maybe I didn't do the subject justice, but we ask Allah ta'ala to give us the ability to understand these aspects, the challenges that our youth are facing. Know that there is no incompatibility in being American and Muslim. You can be both of them, and you can be a great, great ambassador for this country whilst having Islam deeply rooted in your heart, and you will be the best ambassador, inshallah. Know the dangers of identity crisis and peer pressure and how to resolve those problems, how to combat them, and also how youth can be educators for other youth and means for other youth to come to Deen, and then some tips for parents and educators. May Allah Ta'ala give us the tawfiq wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.